Is the 2021 Jeep Wrangler diesel the perfect foundation for an overland build? Well, I sure hope so, because I am now the proud owner of this Jeep right here. And in this video, I'm going to give you a tour of the Jeep I bought, how I spec'd it out, some of the options. We're going to talk about some of the things that are new for the 2021 Jeep Wrangler. And now with over 700 miles on this, I'll give you my initial impressions about the diesel. And then at the end of the video, I'll talk a little bit about the build plan. I think you'll be pretty surprised. This should be a lot of fun. Stay tuned. Welcome to TrailRecon, I'm Brad, and I have been waiting 11 weeks for the delivery of this 2021 Jeep Wrangler diesel. I'm so excited about this vehicle. This is gonna be awesome. Now, why did I order a diesel? Why am I back in a Wrangler? Well, come on. I mean, the Wrangler right off the showroom floor in Rubicon form is the most capable off-road vehicle you can buy today. And a diesel, well, that just opens up a whole new world of torque, range, miles per gallon, but we'll talk more about that as we get into this. But some of you may be asking, Brad, what's going on with the Jeep Wrangler JK and the Gladiator? And I talked a little bit about that in my last video, but they're still in the driveway. My son is the proud owner of the JK, and the Gladiator, well, we're gonna change things up a little bit with that. But this is gonna be the new primary overland vehicle, and we got a lot in store for this. I'm super excited about it. Let's start talking about how this is optioned out. We'll start from the front and work our way back, and then we'll talk about what the build plan is. Now, the foundation for this Jeep, it is a Rubicon Jeep Wrangler 2021 Unlimited with the diesel. The diesel is only available in the 4-door. It would be pretty cool if it was available in the 2-door. And this is being the 2021 model. It's now the third year of this generation Jeep. And so the styling has not changed, but there are some new features that have changed, starting with this little guy right here. That is a front-facing camera, which this is the first year it's been offered on the Wrangler. And I am really excited to have this, because when you are out off-roading and you're going over a steep incline and you're coming down and you're not sure what's down there, now I can turn that on and I get a little bit better visibility, and it lets you know where your tires are going to be placed, which is really cool. Plus, it's got this little washer on here, so if you're out there in a convoy and it's getting all dusty, you just turn that on and you get to clear it up and be perfect. I think that's going to get a lot of use. Now, you have the traditional 7-slot grill, but this grill has larger inserts here compared to the 3.6 liter to allow more airflow in there to cool off this 3-liter Eco Diesel, which we will get into here in a minute. Now, I did opt for the LED light package. I think that's a great option because you get such brighter visibility when you're on the road and off-road. Now, I will be adding some off-road lights to help us out when we're out at night off-roading. It's going to be super helpful, and we'll probably mount some of those right here on this bumper. And I did get the steel bumper. I'm a fan of the Mopar steel bumper. I like the styling of it. Plus, I like the fact that you can take the end caps off and just make it a little more aggressive, and just add a plate in here and install a winch, which I actually will be doing at the end of this video. A winch is going to go in here pretty quick. But perhaps this time, maybe down the road here, I may swap this out for an aluminum bumper, because I think having some aluminum on here with a different styling might be nice, but we won't be throwing a big 100-pound bumper on here. It's not necessary. Now, on the Rubicon, there is a skid plate under there, and we got all kinds of extra skid plates on the bottom of this Jeep, which, you know, I'm probably gonna need. Okay, let's pop the hood and let's talk about this Eco Diesel. Now, like many of you out there, I have been anxiously waiting for the diesel to arrive in the Wrangler, and I'm so excited to finally have one under the hood. This is a game changer, at least it is for me. Let me give you some of the specs and explain why here. So this is the 3-liter Eco Diesel, gives you about 260 horsepower, which, okay, not a big deal, but where the diesel thrives is that 442 pound-feet of torque, which is gonna be amazing when we start adding more gear to this vehicle and towing with it. It's not gonna care. Now, what I have noticed already in driving is when you step on the accelerator, okay, you notice it a little bit, but it's not like throwing you in the back of the seat. But where I've really noticed it is when I'm on the freeway and I'm going on a steep incline, it doesn't downshift. I mean, it doesn't care that it's working to go up a hill. Where in my wife's Jeep or in the Gladiator, you'll see that 3.6 liter downshift 1, 2, sometimes 3 times. This torque and the low range RPMs just goes. You get full torque at 1400 RPMs, which is perfect. So I'm super excited about this. Now, gas mileage, this thing is rated, I guess it's not gas mileage, it's diesel mileage? I don't know. It's rated at 22 on the city and 29 on the highway with 25 mixed. And that's about what I've been seeing. I'm about 25 to 26. I'm pretty conservative. And if I'm on the freeway and I'm really going slow in that slow lane, just as, like right at the edge of the speed limit, I can almost break 30, which is pretty cool. Now, once we start adding, bigger tires and more gear, that's going to change a little bit, but I still think we're going to get well over 20 miles to the gallon. And, the range on this thing, well, it does have a smaller fuel tank. It's only 18.3 gallons compared to the 21 you would get on the normal gas Wrangler because of the def tank that is required on this one, which takes up some of that space with the 5 gallons on that thing. Now, the def tank is an extra fluid that you have to put in there about every 10,000 miles, although some people are saying they're having to do it more often. We'll see how that goes, and I'll report back to you guys on that. But going back to that 18.3 gallon tank with the 25 miles to the gallon, I'm getting well over 400 miles to a tank of fuel, which is really nice. Now, if I throw some auxiliary tanks on here, I have just increased the range on this vehicle when I'm on my cross-country trips significantly. So that is going to be a huge game changer. Now, one little pet peeve I can tell you about this thing, it's not a big deal, it's just something I've noticed. When you turn off the engine, there's this hum that comes from somewhere in here. I think this is like a fan for the turbo or something, and it sits there and buzzes for like 2 minutes, and it does it every time. It doesn't even matter if you just start it for a minute and shut it off, it does that. Not a big deal, but it's just something I noticed. And the other thing is this engine is crammed in here. There is a lot of stuff in a lot of small spaces, and I'm still trying to work my way around understanding what all this is because I want to make sure I'm familiar with this engine. But all in all, I am super happy to have this diesel, and I can't wait to report back on how well it does off-road and on long trips. Okay, let's talk about tires and suspension because there's some unique things about the diesel. All right, so this is the Rubicon model, which means we get a beefier suspension. We've got the Dana 44 axles front and rear on here, with the lockers and sway bar disconnect, which is all going to be nice to have when we're off-road. But interestingly is the diesel only comes with 373 gears. You can't get it in a 410, and that's because you have so much torque, you don't really need it. Plus, I think that 373 is going to be a little bit stronger. Now, if we upgrade to larger tires, am I going to need to re-gear? I don't know. We'll see how that diesel handles. Another important thing to mention about this diesel is it is actually 400 pounds heavier than the 3.6 liter engine, which means they needed to put stiffer springs on here and tune these shocks to handle that weight. We'll see how much that weight matters off-road, but so far this thing cruises down the road no problems. But as I get ready to lift this and put bigger tires on there, it's something I'm going to have to consider. We're going to make sure that the lift kit that we install on here is tuned for that extra weight. That's something that's going to be very important. Now, for wheels and tires, this comes standard with some 33s, and I got the BFG All-Terrains. I think these are a great all-around tire, and I'm going to run these in stock form for a little while. We're going to show you just how capable this Jeep is with the stock tires and stock suspension. You can go some amazing places, even though we're going to lift it and put bigger tires later on. Now, one thing to mention is I did order this from the dealership, and I didn't have an option for black letters or white letters out, and it came with the white letters out, and I think that's a cool classic look. I don't think that's a good modern look, so we'll be flopping that around once we put new tires on here. Now the wheels, I love the styling of these wheels. The only problem is once we put larger tires on there, these wheels aren't going to be wide enough. Now, one other thing to mention, and this is something that I'm going to have to give some serious thought to, is because this vehicle is 400 pounds heavier, your braking is reduced. And some of the tests have said it's about 22 feet, which is quite a bit. So we may have to do some upgrades to these brakes. The only challenge with that is that can get a little costly. So we'll see how that goes, but I think we're gonna have to do something specially once we start outfitting this vehicle and making it a little heavier. That braking is gonna increase even more. And braking on and off-road is a safety feature we don't wanna have to compromise with. Okay, let's hop around to the back and let me show you what's in the rear. Now, before I open up the back and we talk a little bit about that, let's talk a little bit about the top and the fenders. I did opt for the painted hardtop and the painted fenders. I just think that's a good look. It is a little extra money. But the cool thing about the Wrangler is you can take the top on and off, but I just love the look of the painted, and we have already drilled into this, but more on that later. Now, the fenders, I think it's important to consider that don't get the painted fenders if you're planning on swapping out your fenders. Just get the plain plastic ones and then you can do your fender upgrade later. But it isn't necessary to do a fender upgrade. I mean, you can throw a lift kit on here in 37s and run stock fenders, which is really nice. Plus, there's some kits that allow you to pull the inner fender liner out there, and you can even go a little bit larger. So maybe consider that when you're getting ready to buy your Jeep. Maybe you're not going to want those plastic fenders. Okay, on the back here, we do have the high-def rear camera, which is super nice. And I did opt for the Mopar tire carrier, and I think that is a great option. Even if you're not gonna put massive tires back here, to have that strength on there is peace of mind. Because when you are on, washboard roads for many days, over many months, over several years, there's going to be some stress put on to that tailgate, and having that extra hinge support back there I think is worth it, and so that's why I opted for that. And then the nice thing about the Wrangler is this third brake light is adjustable. Now, one thing that people were complaining about on the early models of the Eco Diesel Wranglers was Jeep just put a little sticker down here telling the world that it was an Eco Diesel. This one is a badge. Again, it's not a big deal to me. I may even just take that off. I think people can hear that it's a diesel, and that's enough for me. And let me address that really quick, because I have gotten a few questions about the noise of the diesel. And I'll tell you that you can hear it, but it is not obnoxious. When you're at slow speeds, going around corners, we get the windows down, yeah, you could tell it's a diesel. But when you're cruising down the freeway, I don't notice it any more or less than I do the engine noise from my 3.6 liter. Now, one other thing I did opt for is the remote keyless entry, which is pretty cool because you just grab the handle and you can see the lights come on, the interior lights come on, and it unlocks. And that is a nice feature to have, especially if you're at the grocery store. You don't need to be fumbling for keys to get back here. And then the back of the Wrangler. I am so glad to have the back of a Wrangler again for storage. Because look, the Gladiator is great, but that's open air, and the problem with that is, one, everything back there gets dirty, and two, if you roll up into a parking lot and you've got a lot of gear back there, which I oftentimes have a lot of gear back there, you do have to worry a little bit about, is somebody gonna grab some of this out of there? The great thing about the back here is I've got a lot of space. It's almost 5 feet from the back of the front seats to the edge of here. And if you lay those seats down, you can throw all kinds of gear in here. And then when you are on a dusty dirt road, it's not going to get too filthy back here. And when you're at a parking lot, you close this up and you have peace of mind that everything's going to be secure. Now, I do like the tie downs back here, and I do like the fact that it has a built-in 12 volt. That was something that was missing in the JK. It's very nice to have, because I'll be putting a fridge back here, and I'll be able to plug that right in and not have to wire anything up is going to be super nice. And I do have the Alpine subwoofer back here, which I got to tell you, the stereo system on this thing is on point, but it does not take up a lot of room. But all in all, the back here, it's very simple, but it's very functional. And we do have a little storage under here, but we'll be adding some more storage to this here in the near future. Now, the interior of the Jeep Wrangler, it's really just a great place to hang out, especially on long road trips. I love the layout of everything in here. I mean, look, it's a Jeep, it's utilitarian, but they've really done a good job of bringing it up to the 21st century. A lot of nice creature comforts in here. Now, first, let me start off with the seats. So I got the black leather seats in here, and I do really like the tan leather seats in the Gladiator. And now having got this, I'm like, maybe I should have gone with the tan leather. But the good thing is these are comfortable seats. My only complaint is we're still a manual seat. For as much as I paid for this, can I get an electric seat, please? I mean, I know it's supposed to be a Jeep and utilitarian, but come on, that would be nice to have. Okay, some of the other things that we've optioned out here is I do have the heated seats and the heated steering wheel, and I will tell you, having had that on my Gladiator for the last year, when you wake up in the morning at camp and it's 20 degrees outside and you got to hit the road, boy, to be able to heat those seats and that steering wheel, it makes a huge difference. Also in here, there is a new addition for the Jeep Wrangler. Now, my Gladiator has this, but this is the first time it's been offered on the Wrangler, and that is the Off-Road Plus option. And what that does is it kind of retunes the engine and the transmission when you are off-road. And it's different whether or not you are in 4 low or 4 high. I use it once in a while, but it is a pretty nice feature, especially if you're cruising through the desert and you want just to get a little bit more juice out of there. That's nice to have. I do have the auxiliary 1, 2, 3, and 4 buttons under there. And that's so when we hook up lights and all kinds of other accessories that are going to be going on this vehicle, we'll have that right out of the box. And then looking up on the dash here, there's not a whole lot that's different from the previous generations, but because it is a diesel, we do now have that depth gauge on there, so we'll know how much we have in that tank and when we need to fill it up. I think just carrying some extra when I'm out on a long trip is going to be important. And then if you notice, the tachometer only goes to 4,500 RPMs before it hits that red line. And that's because when you're cruising down the road, boy, this thing is not working hard. I mean, when I'm on the freeway doing 65, 70, it's barely over 1,600 RPM. So this is not a high revving engine. Some people may not be used to that. Now, a couple things on the entertainment system. I did get the 8.4-inch screen with the Alpine stereo system, and this is very similar to what's in the Gladiator. But one complaint I have, and I still wish that Jeep would fix this, is when my wife is with me and we want to do things like maybe change some settings or re-navigate to a different place, it won't allow us to do that. It says the vehicle's in motion, you can't use this function. Well, if I have a passenger in my vehicle, there should be a way to override that so they can use some of those features. It's a little frustrating. The other thing is people love the off-road pages, and I think it's a great little tool. I just wish it would load a little faster. It takes a long time to load. Now, the rest of the interior, we got rubber floor mats, we got lots of space in here. We're going to be doing a lot of work in here. One thing that I didn't get that I wish I would have got, and that is the headliners. I thought I opted for it, but apparently I didn't. So we will be adding some headliners in here because that just quiets things down. But more importantly, when we're out in the desert and it's 110 degrees out there, it will keep the temperature in the vehicle a little bit nicer. All right, you guys ready to talk about what's in store for the overall project? Let's have a quick conversation on that. Okay, so that was just a quick introduction of the Wrangler diesel that I am now the owner of. But what is the long-term plan with this thing? Well, first and foremost, we're going to put a lot of miles on and off-road in this rig. And thankfully, that diesel comes with a 100,000 mile warranty because I'm going to need every single one of those miles once we start traveling across the United States and then hopefully down to Mexico further and further and up into Canada. This vehicle is going to take me a lot of places over the next couple of years, and so I'm going to want to outfit it in a practical manner. I don't want to make this some crazy build where it's on a 6-inch lift with 40-inch tires because that won't be practical if I'm spending, a tire 2 weeks on a road on a trip somewhere. I don't need that. And the great thing about the Rubicon is this thing is super capable right now as it sits. I mean, we can go do the Rubicon Trail. I'm going to struggle a little bit. So eventually having a little bit larger tire and a bigger lift will be nice, but I'm not going to do that right away. I'm going to be working on things that are going to be necessary for self-sustainment. So we've already put a roof rack on there. When I visited my friends over at Rhino Adventure Gear, they helped me do that, drilling that hard top. I was glad to have their help on that. And more on that in the future. I'll be putting a winch on there, and we'll be doing some storage options, maybe pulling one of those seats out of there, putting a fridge back there, doing some stuff with the interior. And I want to do some innovative things, like maybe some kind of lithium and solar setup, something I didn't get to do on the JK. I definitely want to do on this. And I'm going to do some stuff with communications on this Jeep that I haven't done before. And we'll be doing a lot of other stuff. Lift and tires, well, I say this now, but I'm not in a hurry to do that. I want to go wheel it in stock form for a little while and just show you how capable it is. And then maybe what I'll do is upgrade the tires. So we'll go 35s on the stock suspension and go run it that way for a while. And then eventually we'll lift it and probably go 37s, which will probably be the largest tire that I will put on this vehicle. But it will be good because we can talk about how the diesel and the gas mileage handles those upgrades along the way. And then, you know, the weight of everything that we're going to put on here. I mean, we're going to put a rooftop tent on from time to time. It's not going to be up there full time because I still want to test out some different swags, some different types of tents. You know, you saw me use that Shift Pod Mini recently. I actually really like that. Plus, we'll be towing with this, but more to talk about on the towing here in the future. One thing I want to mention, though, as we start adding things to this vehicle, really need to keep weight into consideration because the gross vehicle weight rating on the diesel is 6,100 pounds. Now, on the non-diesel, it's 5,800 pounds. That's a 300-pound difference. But if you remember, I said the diesel weighs 400 pounds more than the standard 3.6. So there's a 100-pound disparity there, which means I can't put as much weight on this vehicle as I could a standard 3.6. That I found to be very interesting. I'm not worried about it because a lot of the upgrades we're going to do are going to be aluminum if we do things like an aluminum skid plate underneath, aluminum bumpers if we opt to do that. I'm really going to be paying attention to weight because I do not want to exceed that 6,100 pound gross vehicle weight. Okay. So that's it. I need to get to work because we got a lot to do, and I will be doing an update video on all the projects we've got going on, and you'll see that along the way. And most importantly, we need to get this thing down and dirty and get it out on a trip here soon and see how she performs. So I will see you guys in the next video.